Evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hi-Fi Club. And I'll introduce Anthony Doman, who's going to speak to Eugene and other gents at HFX Systems in Johannesburg. Thank you. Over to you, Anthony.
Hey, good evening. Thanks, Chris. Good evening and welcome to another in the series Talking Hi-Fi, hosted by the Cape Town Hi-Fi Club. Just firstly, Chris, I want to be sure that you can all hear me. Well, that you can hear me anyway. Before I introduce this evening's guest, just a couple of housekeeping items. As usual, our session will run for about an hour, and it'll include an opportunity to interact with our guest after the formal part of proceedings. And I also encourage you to use Zoom's chat facility, which is down at the bottom of your screen, if you want to put up some comments or questions. And then also a reminder that this session should go live on the Cape Town Hi-Fi Club YouTube channel later tonight. So watch it again and tell your friends. Our guest this evening, well, I gather there's more than one, is Eugene Oosthuizen, who represents HFX Systems. Now that's the name of the long and distinguished pedigree. Anybody who's, for example, is familiar with Bowers & Wilkins, I think will be familiar with HFX. Now, Eugene's impressive title includes Chief Radio Salesman, and he's also Director for the HFX Group of Companies, which spans a range of activities, quite a broad range, from import and distribution to logistics, aviation, automation, and acoustics. Now, what links all of that to this evening, of course, is the fact that the present organization grew out of what started life as Hi-Fi Excellence. So Eugene, why don't you start off by telling us about that journey? Over to you.
Good evening to all. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, Anthony, Chris, and for the club for inviting us to share a bit of our time with you and with your members and guests and whoever is joining tonight. Yeah, HFX, or Hi-Fi Excellence, as you quite rightly say, started out as a kind of a dream and a passion in the early 80s, which from school days, you know, this was a hobby that got out of hand. I sort of maintained through the varsity days, and then come around about 1989, I've made the decision to part with another company and start our business out here in Alberton. And we've been in Alberton ever since. You know, with me at the time came my partner, longtime partner, Kobus Bosch, which at that time was a student as well. And we worked together at the previous shop. And and that's how it started in '89. Signing a lease in a shopping center, scared and full of fear, and but good to go. And the passion drove us through all those years and got us going. From small beginnings, we grew the company over the years and expanded into acquiring brands for distribution. If I recall, on the early days, we introduced Bowers & Wilkins into Johannesburg. From your part of the world, Norman Fogler, you guys will know most probably well and recall, was the distributor down in Cape Town. And when we approached him, you know, there was virtually no Bowers & Wilkins, or there wasn't any dealers as such really in Johannesburg in those days. And we quickly built the brand to quite a substantial brand in Johannesburg with a commitment. The product was good, and it was good for us, and it was good for the end users. So, and from there, Robert Trans got involved and got us really to get going in what Bowers & Wilkins themselves were involved with, Bowers & Wilkins Southern Africa, as a distributing the product and representing it. From there, also, if I, you know, I think if we go to our slide, I've got a couple of slides. Let me just jump in there, Chris, if you've got any. Let's just go and share a bit of the history here. Anthony, so then April '89, we started out in Alberton City in the shopping center. Two of us. We were later joined by someone else, Philip Guttentag, who is with Vivid Audio, that you guys must probably know well. So Philip was with us for a good couple of years. We worked very strongly as the three partners together in creating a very good and solid foundation for HFX. Quibus taking care of financial matters and very well disciplined. Philip from an engineering and technology side and technical side. Myself, as I said, the chief radio salesman. That was my job. Jacques, that sits here to my left, joined us in around about
1991.
1991. After a young student, has never left, and today, besides his very successful selling in high-end audio, he is also heading our corporate division very successfully, and has been responsible for some amazing corporate installations and projects that he handles. We've got a huge and very loyal corporate support base he's built up for us, and that's a very challenging part in terms of technology, especially if we talk about communication and control elements, and Jacques can elaborate a bit more on that quickly for us. Okay, we'll get to that a bit later, Jacques says.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, Anthony, let's see. Is there anything else on your side again?
I think it's clear that the organization has become quite multifaceted, and over the years, I was wondering if you could give us some insight into what is the biggest part of your business these days?
You know, the core business has always been the audio side of things. I mean, that's where our passion lies. That's my deep-rooted passion. And we all got a very deep love for high quality audio and quality sound. And that really has been the glue that kept everything together over the years. And out of that grew many other projects and expansion around the audio side of things. The audio has always been that central foundation to the system, to the company. It's taken care and allowed the opportunity for us to develop into other areas. A simple example I can tell you, so many times we would, for instance, help a client with his audio system, and then after he's had a bit of an experience with us, he says, but listen, I would like you to come over to my company and come and have a look at the boardroom. So, you know, then these companies can be from medium size or small to all of a sudden you're sitting with a big corporate company that you're dealing with, and the connection was audio.
Okay. All right, and now, so we've got a good picture of the way you developed and where things stand at the moment. But I think let's jump straight into the stuff that really interests, I think, a lot of the audience this evening. Tell us about the brands you represent and why those particular brands. I think it's clear that there's one that's been around a long, long time, but I understand that there was a recent change with the BMW situation. Maybe you want to tell us about that?
Now, Bowers & Wilkins has been, you know, we've been so passionate about and taken care of it to the best of our ability for so many years. Since, as I said, very early 90s, when we, well, 89 when we started, I think around about 1990. Bowers & Wilkins is a brand internationally highly respected. And as I've said, it's been good to us and we've been trying to be good to them. The product and recent developments, if you ask about what's happening there, we've been distributing Bowers & Wilkins for that many years. And in recent years, there's been some changes throughout internationally, as you might know, with Sounds United acquiring the Bowers & Wilkins brand as well. And we've been in discussion to move on and free ourselves up from that and allowing that full circle to come about with Homation that has acquired now their distribution rights from us. It was a transaction that was done, but we still continue to sell Bowers & Wilkins. As you can see behind me, this product, we still love the product. We will continue to look after it and to serve our clients. We're not giving up on the brand, not at all. And we will see it out to the end of our time in the audio industry. Certainly, I cannot see that we would walk away from it. But the brand is well established and well respected, and it's just gone from strength to strength in our mind over the years.
What about the other brands that you represent? There's some interesting ones there that people may not be too familiar with.
Anthony, yeah, actually, the very first brands we imported into the country, Mark Levinson, came about. We were at the time in discussion with other high-end manufacturers, and we were purchasing equipment for our high-end projects, American amplifiers and that. And Mark Levinson came about, again, not being represented in the client country, was not available, never been distributed before in South Africa. So we were the first importers. I recall so well, New York, early morning, taking a drive out to Connecticut with a rental, with a taxi, a cab actually at the time, and meeting up with the Levinson guys, being mightily impressed. This was the heyday of Levinson, when they really were starting to make such a big impact into the high-end audio industry. You know, the 90s and early 2000s, and right up to it was their golden years. And we were very fortunate to be part of those years and to be able to experience and represent the product and allow clients to have access to these products. We've had a wonderful, wonderful time and still have. We're a bit concerned currently that, I mean, they might not have the same impact as they used to have. But it's neither here nor there. I mean, these companies are still strong. They're still doing their thing, and they still deliver really good product.
And of course, there are some other ones that are possibly, as I said, a bit esoteric, where some of our people are concerned, like SAT, for example, and I recall you mentioned TechDust.
Yeah, just in closing on Levinson, there's Ravel speakers that also came and was developed in those years, you know, as a high-end speaker brand, and we've distributed and looked after that for many years. Again, the TechDust. Let's just move on to TechDust. I think there's a slide or two coming up here for us, and there's TechDust. Turntables, my, Anthony, we thought we were all done, and we packed away all the vinyls and sold it off and gave it away and shut up that whole experience. And then all of a sudden we see this resurgence, you know, where they came back in a big, big way. And it was purely driven by its performance and fidelity and the audio quality that a good high-end turntable could deliver and still do deliver today, which in many ways we believe still surpasses anything that is available as an audio source. Looking at turntables and why TechDust, I think it addresses a couple of key fundamental things. First and foremost, it comes from a company and people with a very, very strong heritage in turntables. Microsiki was the kind of breeding ground for these engineers and the people that is involved with TechDust today. TechDust technology moved ahead, and there was an opportunity that came about now where you could really go and pursue it to its utmost and address all the issues of turntables very, very precisely, with not having all these cost restraints above you or on top of you. There were people that were prepared to pay good quality or good money for this kind of technology. You're looking at the suspension. We're looking at the decoupling of the motor to the platter for minimized vibration. Most important factors here is the air floating platter, which is a fantastic idea of reducing rumble through the bearing system, because you know so many turntable manufacturers out there with platters that are very heavy. They push down on a bearing point. I mean, TechDust addressed that. What is the microns we're running there, Jacques? About 1.5, 2 micron, I think.
It's 3 microns.
3 microns of air that the platter floats on. It is pure bliss to experience these tables. And then lastly, when the record goes down, there's the suction. That record gets coupled to the platter. The tone arms, TechDust does not do any tone arms yet, but I can tell you that it is in development. Graham tone arms is that Graham SME and SAT has been the tone arms of choice for most of the guys. We've used Kusma extensively and love the Kusma arms on these turntables. It is really a very, very special piece of kit. I see someone is asking what's the price range of these turntables. They are typically just below 300,000 upwards for the models we stock currently. Yeah, it's just 300,000 and then they move up.
Just to take that question of the brands a little bit step further, B&W, as you said, or Bowers and Wilkins, to put it out in full, is a brand that's become quite established. And there are some others that you mentioned that maybe aren't as established. In your experience, what do local audiophiles consider when they are looking at a particular type of equipment or particular component? Are they brand loyal? Are they perhaps too brand loyal, not looking at alternative brands? What's your view on that?
You know, the informed and I don't want to say seasoned, but for many clients, you know, audiophiles is one thing, and then there's people who just want to really have good music, and they won't classify themselves necessarily as audiophiles outright. But let's just answer the one. Quality brands have got performance first and foremost, is performance. Second to that is the endurance capability, longevity, and support, availability of parts, and being able to service those items, because these are long-term purchases in the high-end industry, if we're talking about the kind of prices we talk here. And you would want something to be able to have a life expectancy at least. And take that, just to come back, why we didn't go into looking for turntables into the European and the American market as such. I must be very honest with you. You know, if I look at a tech dust, I kind of compare it to what you would experience with a very good quality Nikon or Canon camera. That precision, it will work every time. It's going to do what it's meant to do. You're going to have the high reliability factor. Precision manufacturing, so beautifully manufactured, and with that kind of durability and quality to it, which is built in. And that really appealed to me. And that made us go back into turntables as such. We did not bring in all these cheaper, inexpensive type turntables that become pricey in some of the model ranges. We wanted to go all out for top-notch quality turntable. That was it, and it's enough for us.
Yes, so you're the customer, you've been well advised, you've plonked down your large amount of money, and you've gone off with your turntable or similar. But now are you left on your own high and dry? I know you touched on support. What sort of post-sales tech support are we talking about? Can you actually, if a repair is required, can you actually repair it to the same standard as it was originally?
That takes you back to the relationship that you would have with the manufacturer and the supplier. Because first and foremost, well, you're going to require parts. You're going to require spares. In order to execute a 100% return to original or to performance standard, you cannot have a made-up piece of something. You've got to be able to source the part, the original and the correct part, and fit that. And we've run our service center downstairs, and we've always had a service element for most probably in-house.
Easily for 23, 24 years.
Yeah, 23 years, as Jacques say there, an in-house with technicians on board and people available here. And, you know, a lot of these things also you've got to go out into the field. I mean, I had a call out this afternoon for a Levinson amplifier that went down last night with load shedding. Protection circuit coming up. And you know, the discussion to the client this morning is, I have to tell you that the amp is 25 years old, or approaching 25 years. We collected it, we put a loaner in, it's already in the workshop downstairs, it will get attended to tomorrow and moved on. And we've got full access to technical drawings, and as well as the service documentation and being able to source parts. It is not so easy, you're quite right. I mean, there are many manufacturers which do not share the drawings with you, and and well-known ones, very well-known ones. We've bumped our head. Fortunately, it's not brands that we're involved in, but we've attempted and have helped clients to service those. But yeah, that protects your investment and obviously your enjoyment of the product, is to be able to know that you will have uptime. And when a repair is executed, will it be back to full performance standard? Because these are high performance items we're talking about. You cannot have a substandard part fitted or something like that. No.
Eugene, great. I'd like to return in a little while to the nitty-gritty of hi-fi, but maybe for a while you could just branch off into one of your other lines of endeavor, which is, I guess, home theater is the umbrella term for it. But I think bespoke installations, we were looking at some stuff earlier, and would you like to give us a bit of a, again, insight into what people are doing domestically and maybe even corporate in terms of getting that big screen experience in their bedrooms?
Yeah, we'll, sorry, we're just going to try and find a couple of photographs that's relevant to that question, Anthony, but I'm just going to quickly run through your return work. There we go, there's one. So this project is in process at the moment. It's progressed a bit further. This is home theater or cinema, real proper cinema. This is JBL synthesis, standard cinema. Front screen, well, if you just look at the guy standing there, you get an idea of the scale. The ceiling height here is in excess of 4 meters. We're seating 18 people in the cinema. Screen is just on 7 meters width. Acoustic transparent, speakers behind, obviously. Full-blown JBL synthesis system going in. On the sides and the surrounds here, there's an overhead Atmos layout here of 8 channels. There is 8 channels on the base layer, and then up across the front, we've got front height in that. Cinemas for us, smaller surround sound systems, we're not very active in, I must be honest. We're more in the bigger projects for cinema, for home cinema and home theater, where it really is a very high performance. Over there, you can stop a bit as well. We've got a couple of challenges coming up here now. Atmos is, we've developed out of Dolby 5.1, we went 7.1, then it was 9s, then it went to 12 and 13.
We're currently on immersive audio, and just essentially what that means, we have a bed layer, which is everything that is at ear level, and that's mixes that allows audio to move from front to back and side to side diagonally. And then objects are being added to the bed layer. An object is literally taking a single thing like a bee that's flying, and that object is then moved in terms of height as well through the 3-dimensional soundstage. So that's why they talk about immersive audio. And Dolby, DTS, Aura all have a incarnation of immersive audio.
When are we getting immersive video?
Sorry, Anthony?
I was thinking, when do we get to immersive video? It's still on a screen in front of you.
Yeah, the next step is going to be the screens probably will disappear. We'll all wear, virtual reality.
Yeah.
That's going to be the next level. We will, and that's most probably not far away. How the audio part gets incorporated into that through headphones or whatever. Virtual reality is a scary thing. I don't know if you're going to wake up one day not knowing are you in the real life or not.
The Truman Show.
Yeah, and that Truman Show is really it's here. It's already, the gaming guys is already there. It's just a matter of time for us. But theaters, as I said, our focus is definitely on the more high-end stuff. We don't really do a lot of the AV receiver type small installations, purely because of cost as well. We've got very skilled, highly skilled technical guys to implement this. And these are big projects. There's shop fitting involved. There's the control elements from an automation and control element. There's the choices of screen. Are we going projection? Are we going? That's a video wall you're looking at there. That's Samsung the wall on the left there. This client has got a cinema to the right. You don't see it. The seating is across the bowling alley. And he looks there. There's a full JBL system in that black border. There's subs inbuilt in there. There is a JBL speaker system in there. And there's some of the Atmos speakers that's going to the back, into the ceiling and across. That particular installation that's driven from here out of the server room. You can see the Macintoshes in there. And the Crown amplifiers. We use quite a bit of the Crown amps. They're noisy in a domestic environment, so you've got to get it into a server room. it's very cost efficient and effective. And again, DSP is on board on these amplifiers, so you can set for subwoofers and for your crossover points, and again, optimization of the sound. Yeah, very.
I take it you'll need some special power supply considerations for that, and then also your acoustic environment needs some specialist attention as well.
Preferably, you would want to address the acoustics. It's a very ideal situation if you can talk acoustics and the client is prepared to embark with you upon this journey of addressing acoustics. Fundamentals is important, dimensions, the fundamental dimensions of the room. That's your starting point. The construction and materials present in the room. Are we going to deal with glass? Are we going to have a suspended ceiling? All sorts of weird and wonderful things. You know, in cinemas, we often arrive on situations or come to cinemas where there's tiered seating and there was a structure built to house the seating. It becomes a massive bass trap. You know, these things can play havoc on acoustics. You know, we've got a couple of solutions that we implement when it comes to that. But yeah, acoustics is important. Power is very, very important. In this particular one, I'm trying to look here, where's our top right. We've got a Furman running top right in that rack for the critical components, you know, filtering and protecting, and there's some UPS built in there, mostly for the switchgear networking. You know, Anthony, today, hi-fi cannot live without networks. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
For most people, I'm not talking about audiophile people with a very basic system, which is a purist approach, but for the modern day consumer, network and network integration and connectivity, as well as the ability of us to be able to service and connect onto these networks has become a pre-requirement. You can't live without it.
It's a bit early days, I suppose, Eugene, but has this whole work from home scenario impacted on the way you do things here?
Yeah, so that is a very important point. 99% of residential networks purely consists of an internet service provider that brings bandwidth to the house. It goes into a typical wireless router, and it is dad that's on a VC, mom is on a VC call, and the 3 kids are bored and they're on their PlayStations. So immediately there's a bad VC experience for both mom and dad, and the kids are struggling to get the online gaming running smoothly. So we need to look at a network. We need to prioritize bandwidth to specific devices or IP addresses or MAC addresses, and then the bandwidth that is left over can go for the less important things. If my email takes a bit longer, it doesn't really matter. So in our networking, all our networks sit on the cloud. We can remotely manage these networks, and we can remotely manipulate the parameters so that dad's laptop gets more bandwidth so that he's got a better VC experience, for example.
But Anthony, just to tell you on that, you know, streaming has become a very important source for audio. And Apple TVs, I mean, that's where how people connect. Tidal, Cubase, all of these things. It's so important because, you know, audiophile is one thing, but for the general public and the wider audience and the new consumer, the modern day consumer, they rely heavily on networks. And if that collapses, they're not going to have a wonderful music experience. They're not going to have a great entertainment experience on Netflix. So it's a critical component in the audio AV home cinema chain. Very important.
It seems to me that there's been quite a significant change in, you know, the consumption of media and your demographic, the people you're installing for. It also seems to me that there's quite a distinction between the audiophile that has a few bits of equipment that cost a fortune and the person who's probably more of a consumer, your streamer, who has much more equipment costing, or looking at the picture there, significantly more. How has this whole thing affected the way you guys do business?
Well, we had to become very capable and aware and savvy on where the market was moving. You certainly cannot survive on audiophile business. That is, if you want to build a decent, high quality, sustainable business, I can assure you, you've seen many of those come and go over the years. those shops and that. Have a look and see if we could find some other things. Any case, and as much as we love it, yeah, it's great. But you're quite right. These systems, the modern day users, where audio components are used, and it's wonderful to introduce these people to quality loudspeakers, to quality amplification, to partner his streamer, to partner his Apple TV. You know, it enhances that whole experience, and it just, you know, blows their mind what is out there. And it's nice to introduce them to high quality audio and audiophile type equipment. So that by being able to connect at a level on networking and that, you then bring them and show something new and fresh to them. And for the same, the inverse of that is also true. The traditional guys that has been, you know, now he cannot, his cassette deck is packed up, he can't listen to that anymore. His turntable is kind of discarded of the collection there. CDs is difficult to get because he can't even go to a shop anymore to buy a CD. I think our last shops is virtually closed. You know, he's forced to migrate, and now's the great opportunity to show him what the difference between different performances and streamers are, how a big impact it can have on the sound quality that he will get when he evaluates them.
While you are searching for some more interesting pics there, I'm going to pull the fast switch and say, well, this is the Cape Town Hi-Fi Club Zoom session. So let's talk about hi-fi for a little bit. You know, is there such a thing as an average audiophile these days? And is there a modern, let's be specific and say, is there a modern NAD 3020 on the market that, you know, can provide the same sort of impact? Are there components like that out there for the average audiophile?
I wish I could answer you and say yes, there is, but there's very little of it. I must be honest. You've got to, you know, in the days of a NAD 3020, it was a kind of an unopposed little beast. You know, there was not many other. So I'm trying to think back. We had Cambridge Audio then with their small ones. There was a Greek amplifier. Rotel tried with the little 8020s or 820s, I think, if I recall correctly. Was you taking me back now? 79, 80, 81, 82. It was a very nice opportunist or an opportunity and it was beautifully I don't want to say exploited necessarily, but NAD built a great reputation with a little pair of AR speakers or small KEFs or something that you would partner it with. Simplistic, purist, wonderful sound, and it was the entry for so many wonderful new customers, introducing them to sound. You know, I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, and I'm so, you know, in those days, the music that we were listening to was interesting. The music that you could buy, there was things happening within the music, instruments, nuances that you wanted to extract and experience at a higher level than what you would have generally got from if I just name generic names, a Supersonic Hi-Fi or a Philips Hi-Fi or a Blaupunkt or something like that. And NAD gave you that opportunity, you know, put this plain, pure little system together and you would be wowed. Is there something new? Jock, help me there. I'm desperate to find.
Well, I'm not looking for specific names. I just wanted to know if this was even still a niche of the market that the manufacturers were interested in. But you're circling there, so I'm guessing maybe not.
No, not really, for the simple reason that they also have to make the product interact with newer technologies. So you would typically find that now the entry-level NAD / Cambridge, Rotel, etc. can do streaming, can do network radio, does have an HDMI input so that it can extract the audio from an Apple TV. So yes, it is a stereo amplifier, but it has additional connectivity. Implementing all that connectivity then takes the price point to a different level.
Yeah, and that makes it not so affordable as what a NAD was at the time. You know, you're not going to, if you put it in perspective, as Jock says. Although I think these smaller integrated amplifiers with all these features, if you think about Denon, Marantz, NAD themselves, NAD is there. They do play that part in the market as well. It's a switch mode amplifier, if I recall it. Lamps.
Yeah.
It is. It's got modular cards which you can slot in, so you can start out. It's not impossible. It's but it's not as clear cut and as simple as it used to be. You're going to have to do a bit of homework.
You've used a word a couple of times, and then another word that was similar. It was interactivity and connectivity, which brings me to perhaps another area of your business that is related to this. What's your involvement in things like automation and Internet of Things type of technology?
Well, yeah. So, if I may, there's different levels of automation. I have a requirement to take a single room and simplify the operation thereof. So that'll be a standalone little control system talking to equipment in the room, to where we literally take care of every single electrical load and device in a room, in a house, and make that available both on-premise, both off-premise, and we look at everything from 4K digital video encoding, decoding, distribution of audio now over digital platforms like Dante and AVB, because you cannot simply run an audio input source over an RTA cable for 50 meters from one end to the house to the other side of the house. So everything now migrates to digital encoding and decoding, which again places so much more strain on the network and the devices that is going to handle that bandwidth. So, yeah.
I mean, just an example, I mean, switchgear for 4K video, we're talking 10.
Yeah, so every single port on 4K needs to be a gig. If you have 16 devices on the network switch, you need 16 gig processing in the backbone. And when you jump to 8K, that is times 10.
We keep coming back to video, but video has become another sense that we are kind of stimulating, and we cannot ignore the visual element. I mean, visual and audio is connected so closely, and visual gave us a bit of new life into audio as well, because most people are pretty familiar with the visual elements, and they quite enjoy that, and it's an easier intro into a family system or a home system. And now to supplement this with good quality audio gear, just it enhances that experience to other levels. Automation projects, I can assure you, but lots of bad experiences by people on automation. So because of poor execution. Let me just go to the slides there with that server room. I want to show you a high-end residential installation or house. Can you get back onto those pictures?
Okay, while you're doing that, I just want to remind viewers that if you've got any questions, you could either save them for once this session is completed, and you can put them direct to Eugene and Jacques, or you could just use the chat facility and put them up, and I'll ask them on your behalf as we go along. Thanks.
Yeah, so just to wrap up basically on automation side, integrity of installation, quality of installation will certainly allow you to have a positive experience. Good quality equipment that's well supported, very, very important. If I tell you how many pieces of strange brands, weird and wonderful things we had to pull out of houses and literally throw away, look at this kind of installation. This is in a multi-million rand house in the central, well, in the high-end part of Johannesburg. This is Sandhurst. Yeah. Look at the electrical connections that we encounter. Just now, you open the server room and you walk in and it looks like this. You get a shock. So, I mean, this scares you. That's bad experience of AV. Just go on. Look at that. There's the security stuff lying on the ground, half working. Just look at that rack. So, you know, when you encounter that kind of thing and the guy tells you, I don't want to hear about home automation. I've had enough drama and I've spent enough money. That's because of installations like that you come across. That kind of mess, and that, look at the patches and everything for the audio. You can just imagine what's going on. Hums, delays, noises, failures, fallover. How do you service anything like that? There's an installation of ours. I mean, certainly we've grown to get better and better, and we pursue it to become better and better at these kind of installations. You know, training up staff, respecting what is needed, separating power from data, making sure there's no induction into the lines, you know, cleaning it up and crossing at 90 degrees, you know. Difficult, very difficult, you know. I think you're also in the hands of builders and electricians and, you know, many other contractors, which unfortunately do not share the same values that you've got for this when you're executing an automation installation.
Eugene, that's quite an important point here because, you know, one can have the right values, but you don't necessarily have the right, shall we say, qualifications. I think there is certain accreditation that one has to have to operate in this sort of area.
So from the supplier side, people like Restaurant and Savant, I mean, they run training courses and you've got to qualify from them just to become very capable and on their products. I mean, Restaurant has probably been the leader on this kind of training in the country.
Technical certification, programming certification, network certification before you're allowed to take their products to site for an installation.
And that has got to be maintained over years. Then you know, apart from that, you've also got CDL, which is a great organization and done wonderful work, you know, the custom installation company, with their courses and what they present. I mean, companies like Extron, there's a lot that can be done and learned. Unfortunately, one of the big problems, Anthony, and I'll tell you, is that we are not, and if I say we, I'm talking about the industry, is not necessarily respected and can charge the full rates that is required for highly skilled and qualified people to be on your site and to install and maintain your system, as what is done in first world countries like Europe and in the USA, where you would get outright specialist automation. We've got to be a bit of a jack of all trades. You know, we've got to cover so many bases. We've got to be on the network. We've got to be on the acoustics. We've got to be on the audio. We've got to be able to fit and set up a turntable. You've got to do so many things here to survive. And it pushes the guys. It pushes very hard on the staff and that, you know. And it's hard to get people that are committed and stay with you over the years, that grow and become very, very skilled in your company.
You talked about some brands and manufacturers and you know, with that come with a certain level of assurance, quality assurance and reassurance. Let's just turn to the subject of local products. That's been an issue at times for dealers, I think, because possibly of supply issues. Do you have any involvement with the local manufacturer or do you not?
Well, if you look on that picture there, my local manufacturing there is the plinth below the Krell amplifier, which is Hein from Sound Structures. You guys have had him on the club before. I mean, Hein walked into the store in '89 and he said to me, he's at the SABC or whatever at the time, and he was leaving. He was going to start to build these stands. And I mean, Hein has delivered consistently, difficult sometimes, and you've got to be very, very patient for delivery. A very good quality product. He's always, when it arrives, it is top quality. But let's just go to electronics. Let's go to speakers on the local market and what is locally manufactured. I've got unbelievable respect for the people that are involved, the Sculps of this world, the Philip Gutenthal. I mean, Philip has gone to national level with it. He doesn't, you know, he's way beyond what is we can today local. If I look at Sculp, I look at Sonar Roy, who's been doing these things for many years. I can only but have respect. Is it a product, and is it products we sell from sometimes? I mean, from Sculp's product we've done a bit, but it's not one of our main lines and main brands, unfortunately. For reasons, there's many reasons I would say, but not, you know, again here we're talking about single operators, Anthony. You know, people who's putting top dollar down for equipment. you can't just bet on a company where it could be vulnerable to not exist by the passing or departure of a person in the company. If you're looking at if you're looking at a Bowers and Wilkins, you're dealing with a company. Yes, there's individuals and there are people, and it started out small, but at least you know this company has got, there's a future, and there's been great support, and there's parts availability. When we service speakers that's 20 years old, if you look at HFX for the SABC, we did over the years, how many times they lost drivers. I mean, that we could keep these guys going. So it's difficult if you've got a small operation. I mean, as much as we respect them, but this is a small market. South Africa is a very small market. So it's hard for these guys to really make it work.
In an area of hi-fi that is, I suppose, interests people who belong to clubs like ours is upgrading, tweaking, DIY, and the sort of thing, which is not really the area that you're involved in. But I'm interested in, is there even still such a thing as an upgrade path in the world of hi-fi these days?
We've taken clients from a 10,000 Rand system to a multi-million Rand system. And we've looked after these clients for so many years. We've grown with customers. Customers have grown with us. They've challenged us on projects. There's absolutely an upgrade path, no doubt. You would see our second-hand list on HFX on the pre-owned. It's one of the most visited pages, very active, lots of second-hand and trading equipment. And these are all products that come out from upgrades that's done for clients. And we've been on wonderful journeys with clients, starting small and moving through it over years, 10, 15 years plus, 20 years, see how their systems evolved from a basic system to a really super high-end audio system. And that has been as enjoyable for us as I would hope for them.
I like that you've grown and evolved with your customer base, and that they still remain faithful, and of course you remain faithful to them. I'm interested in the new customers coming in. What sort of people are you seeing? Are they younger? Are they female versus male? What are you seeing? Any change in your client demographic?
I'm touching on a sore point. You know, we had a bit of a...
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know it's sad to say, but we lost a generation of youngsters that left the country, which would typically have been around here. So many of you listening in tonight and sitting there must probably have got kids overseas and not in the country.
Oh, yes.
And I mean, what a sad, tragic situation. Yeah, there's Joshua says he's lost two to out of the country, and so you could you know, that is
Stuart, actually, Eugene.
Oh, sorry. Oh, there it is.
Logged on as my my grandson.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, there's Stuart. I mean, he's also a guy that's contributed a lot to the local industry. But yeah, I mean, Anthony, that's very tragic that we've lost these quality guys that would have been the young and the new generation that we would have wanted to work with. You know, we still do for clients, for their kids. I mean, we've been so long in this business, 30 odd years, so that we've gone from the dad to the son, and we're dealing on the son level or the daughter level again. Female is very low still. I mean, and I don't think it's ever going to change in our lifetime. The younger generation, coming back to the asking about NAT 3020, you know, all of a sudden things such as a Sonos amplifier comes up. You know, that is a typical NAT 3020 for a young guy today. You know, he buys a little Sonos amp or a Sonos Connect. He connects a pair of speakers onto that, and now he's got access to source. And and it's very simple. It's a single box. Unfortunately, that is not open-ended high-end or open-ended audiophile piece of equipment. May it be a small piece. And that 3020 had external inputs for a turntable to experience that, and you could connect other auxiliary sources to it. But I'm just saying that is the typical dilemma that we're facing, bringing up the next generation and the new generation. We are forever trying to introduce to new clients and to the people to expose them to the wonderful world of high-end audio. It's very rewarding. It's a beautiful family thing. We've been very fortunate in a way with the COVID situation. People were forced into their homes. They were switching on their systems much more frequently. We were busy sorting out systems like you cannot believe, stuff that was neglected, speaker tweeters that was not serviced or was dented in by a kid 3, 4, 5 years ago. All of a sudden we got the calls come sort it out. We listening to music, put up a new cartridge on the turntable. Can you do this? Can you do that? So that kept us very busy. And internationally, Macintosh informed us, listen, we are snowed under. We've got such a growth in the US because of lockdowns. People are spending more time at home. The changing security situation in the country is forcing you to spend more time at home. You're feeling more comfortable in your environment. It is in a way behind closed doors. No one needs to know. You're not shouting out loud what's going on. But as a person, you are enriched by that experience of enjoying high quality music and or video or whatever takes your fancy that connects into our industry.
Eugene, I think there is a well-known expression that time flies when you're having fun. I see it's 8:21. And so we're reaching the end of the formal part of this session. I've just got a couple more things I'd like to cover, if you wouldn't mind. And then if you have some time, I would like to throw the floor open to the viewers to interact directly with you. If that's okay. What do you think?
Yeah, we can certainly take a bit of time. I'm just glancing over some of the questions that we saw here. The price range of tech dust we've covered. So the price range of tech dust, as we said, just from below 300,000 and it goes all the way to a couple of million. Tech dust Zero sits at the 7 million, I would imagine, 7 million mark for the turntable.
Okay, there's a couple that have come in here now, so I'm going to ask you this one. What's the most challenging installation your team has undertaken? And I'll give you another one as well, which you can think on. Can you suggest a mid-priced, good-sounding stereo setup and roughly the price? And there's part 2 of that is how long is a piece of string? But anyway, go right ahead.
Yeah, a mid-price system these days would component for component, you would be hovering between 25 and 50,000 per component if you really want something that can deliver performance. If it's a 3-piece system, may that be a streamer, amplifier, pair of speakers, yeah, there's yours, 75 minimum and going up. And that would give you really good quality sound. I mean, you'd be at a nice performance level, a reasonable good performance level. Yeah. We spoiled, it's so difficult for us. It's when you're asking a guy that sells high performance cars, what is a good entry level car?
Yeah, what's a good student runabout?
Oh, it's not so easy.
And of course, the other question then was, what's the most challenging installation your team has undertaken?
So, challenging is a double-edged sword in a way. Is it challenging because of the environment it's going in, or is it challenging with the client you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think timelines timelines on projects is really where we take the hardest part of the grunt, because a handover date for a client's house or a commercial project never moves. But all other contractors that come before you are all delayed. So if you are asking for 10 working days, they will give you eventually 3 or 4. So that's what makes installations very challenging. So we've had sites where we've asked for 30 working days and they've given us 5. So we just have to take everybody,
you knuckle down,
push all more teams to the site, go 24/7 and get it done.
So that, as Jacques says, it's the challenging has got a lot of facets to it. But we've done some interesting and challenging things, video walls. We're now busy. You've just done.
Have you got that one I sent you?
If you could just maybe mention that with the one that we were looking at earlier, just as an anecdote, maybe the one about the near the U.S. Embassy, I think it was.
Oh yeah, getting that stuff up on the roof and getting the equipment in now, because it didn't fit through the doors. You can't. The equipment is too big. The TVs is too big, and the speakers and everything. We could not. We had to create. That is challenging, but it's a bit of fun as well in a way when you do that. What would be challenging is to sort out that server room I showed you the pictures of. I mean, that is literally a visit yesterday to that site. I mean, this weekend I'm spending time to prepare the quotation for that, and. I mean, that's going to be a huge challenge, because if it's so rotten already there, what lies behind in the conduits and what's going on.
You just flashed up an interesting slide there. I know we talked about that earlier. Tell us a bit about the recording studios and standardizing on bars and organs.
Well, this was just these couple of studios around the Pretoria area where the guys has really sort of settled in on Bowers and Wilkins, and it works very well there. This is Floor Stage, the guitarist studio. It's one of the studios that measured the best. If you've got some measurements here, we do quite a bit of XTZ, room analyzation, but we know what we deal with. You know, you go into a room and a system, you talk about a challenge. When you set up a system in a room, the room is playing such a huge role on the outcome of the sound. I mean, the room is a critical component, and we've got very little control over the room. And it's all good and well to say you can DSP and you can EQ and that, you know, but all that stuff has got to happen above the line. And ideally, you would want the acoustic environment to be conducive and supportive of what you're trying to achieve. But measuring the room and knowing what you're dealing with is a very, very important thing. Just go back to XTZ measurements. I mean, this is now turn-off graphs for phase alignment here. We've got a couple of things. I'm just going to show you something else here on the XTZ. We'll get a picture now. We'll come to it. And I can tell you that now here we go into a room and measure the room, and then we can see exactly what is happening in that room. And that guides us very quickly. You know, talking about acoustics, Floyd Toole and all these guys have written big books, big fat books in the encyclopedia on acoustics, Schroeder and all these guys. So you've got to be, you have to have a basic knowledge and a good understanding what happens, you know, in rooms. Jacques spends a lot of time on that, you know, looking out for standing waves and predicting them, calculating them up front when you just look at basic measurements over here.
Yeah, we in partnership with a company called Ardnovion, who are based in Portugal, and we are able to, before a room is built, have it completely designed in terms of crucial length, width, height, construction methodology, specific rigidity. All the acoustic treatment that needs to go into the rooms is done beforehand, and is then documentation is generated for the construction, for the placement. So it's important to have that ability. So it's no longer just a guess in the dark and sort of try and patch it up afterwards.
You're not going to change interconnects and get a wonderful acoustic change because of a fundamental that's wrong in your system. Forget it. You're bluffing yourself. You will get a small change, but you're not going to address the issues. You're going to, you know, very few loudspeakers. If you drive, surely yes, if you bring the wrong speaker that extends in terms of bass reproduction in a problematic room, you're going to just aggravate it and make it a bigger problem, so to speak. But acoustics and room acoustics is a science and something that is not respected and is very neglected for good reasons. A, costly, very costly to implement. B, does not go down well with the wife when you're starting with skyline diffusers, RPG, quadratic diffusers, when you're putting in bass traps into rooms and that. I mean, bass traps is another swear word which I'm very scared of. But getting the room sounding right, very rewarding sonically. You can make a basic system sound exceptional. You can make a truly high-end sound system sound mind-blowing in a good acoustic space if you have paid attention to that. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
Well, gents, I have just a couple more questions from my side. Firstly, when it comes to bespoke installations, which you guys seem to specialize in, when the time comes to sell the dwelling, as it often happens, does this become a selling point, or is it something that may actually become a sticking point, that dedicated entertainment area that is now entirely given over to one purpose?
You know, cinemas was a big thing, you know, home cinemas was a kind of a selling point, I tell you, a couple of years ago. Personally, if you've got the space and the ability to do it, and you're really a family that will enjoy it, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a big asset to any house or any property. you know, again here, the cinema has to be kept up and maintained and be of a standard where it really is up to date when the new buyer is going to be looking to buy. Not necessarily going to appeal because the interior might have been to your liking and purple and pinks, and he's not into that. He would want something in timber or whatever. So they can be, you're quite right, it can become a sticking point. Just sorry, I'm just bringing up some graphs. I'm looking at rooms and looking what happened in areas. Where's the measurement room? I've got a measurement there.
That's
just give me the
standard
measurement, the fundamentals. There's some measurements taken in a room, for instance, gives us an idea. There you can see what happens, the waveform that's formed, 63. Jock, have you got another one with showing us the...
So just a very interesting point. 15 years ago, when you built a room and you were doing acoustics in the room, you would buy a very thick carpet and very thick curtains, and you're going to do two things. You're going to have significant absorption coefficient through the mid-band and high frequency band, and you're going to have virtually nothing that gets done in the low frequency. So the comment then typically would be, once you've done the room like that, is that I find the bass overwhelming in my room, and I find the high frequency very bright, because yes, the only thing that the carpeting and the curtaining has done was to suck out the mid-range energy. So going back to what Jason had up on the screen, there's a typical example of a room where a lot of carpeting and curtaining has gone in. The low frequency energy runs for a much longer time duration, and the comment is going to be, there's too much bass in the room, and the high frequency runs for a long time. There's too much high frequency in the room. So we can see that in a room and put back in the energy that's supposed to be there.
You can see here on this next slide coming up here, I think Jason will just share something with us when we do a measurement. If you look on this particular one, I just want to see if it comes up. It's coming up now. Just to closing on the rooms and the sticking point, Anthony, I prefer a room that connects into the house where there's good audio for the family to share on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily having to go down into a specific downstairs cellar type cinema. I think it's more appealing if it really is part of the living space, can be enclosed, but that you can connect on a daily basis. You know, when it becomes a destination room, it is not ideal in my mind. I'm not a big fan.
That makes a lot of sense. What are we looking at now?
So this is a measurement taken. This is a beautiful one. Huh? This looks good. I mean, there's very little abnormality here. We do not see huge buildup of specific frequencies.
Yeah, so there's two things that you see. Apologies, Eugene. On the left-hand side, the curve is a representation of the sound pressure level through the audio band. In this particular case, sub 250 hertz. What we see on the top right with the red, the yellow, and the green is a representation of those audio frequencies in time duration as well. So it's all good if good and well I have a frequency plot in terms of amplitude on the left that looks nice and even, but I could have on the right hand side, I could have 3 or 4 frequency points where the red line that currently stops at about 15 milliseconds, that some of those frequencies can run for as long as 500 milliseconds, and that's typically a room mode. So that one frequency, every time that frequency plays, you keep on hearing it running through the room because it stays for longer. It's audible for longer.
Yeah, so that one, I tell you what, if you've got a room like that, you'll have pretty good bass there.
Yeah, that will be fantastic.
That's beautiful bass. That
even,
will be
it's even in SPL through the band, and it's even in time duration through the band.
I'm just going to try and find a photograph quickly here in closing on this subject. Well, just to make it more complete, where there's a horrible, nasty spike or something, you know, where there's bass out of control at a very specific point.
Okay, gentlemen, while you look for that picture, I'm just going to wrap up with my last question or comment really, but it is a bit of a question. A sad thing, I guess, about the way audio and entertainment and media has developed in the recent past has been that we've seen the demise of those specialist stores. And how has this affected the way you do business, and how have you managed to actually keep going despite all these pressures on the business?
Okay, I think the one thing that you've seen tonight is diversification, being able to address across a very broad spectrum, audio, visual, and audio. You cannot put your eggs in a small little basket for something very specific. It's not going to keep you afloat. You've got to expand with people around you that's capable and bring them on board that can support your efforts into the market. We have been, unfortunately, with the arrival of online trading and too much knowledge on the internet and all sorts of things like that, we've seen a massive erosion of pricing because it's a drive to the bottom by so many people. I mean, earlier tonight, I had a discussion with my business partner, and just looking at some of the big corporates in this country, especially the television market, has been a prime example of how little you're allowed to survive with. You're picking up a 50,000 Rand TV for a client. There's a profit opportunity there that's nothing more than 1,000 Rand. You've got to do that transaction. By the time you send a driver out, connected that, take it to site, installed it, you are actually contributing to that project. You are paying money in on that. And that's a tendency and a thing that's become bigger than just that. It has affected so many people in this industry. It's hard to sell labor in this industry because we're not paid the right rates, unfortunately, for reasons, good reasons, I suppose, qualification and capability. I mean, there are too many guys that's probably running out there, or a lot, that is not qualified and certified and has not got the backing in place, such as compliance for projects. You've got to be able to do that. The stores itself, rental space in any shopping center, we see the demise and foot traffic in them. That is a whole changing field.
And we make specific effort to take from our premises to clients products that they will be interested in, services that they could be interested in. So, we come to you. It's no longer a question of you coming to a store, which is somewhere in a mall. You're not comfortable going there because of COVID, etc., etc.
But I can tell you on that point that Jacques has just mentioned, we've got our biggest high-end clients has never set foot in this place. We've got very, very high-end clients. In 30 years, they never visited, maybe once. And I've dealt with them for so many years. They just got, so we go there, we talk to them, they can get the information they require about products, and then they want to experience the product. So do we have it in hand? Have we got the stock? Have we got the means and the ability to take a pair of 800s out to site? Can we take a pair of AIDAs out to site? This is a 2 million Rand loudspeaker you're shifting around town, for a client to hear. But that is what it takes. That's what you got to do. If I show you pictures over the last couple of weeks of stuff that was shoved around and moved around, there was someone who's asked me about Wilson speakers earlier.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll go back to that picture because he asked, please show us that on the Wilsons. That was part of a project. We were evaluating speakers with the client. Wilson Audio, Magico, Sonus Farbus, all things, This is part of a decision, a very, very important and critical decision that the client wanted to make about a future purchase. And you got to get all those logistics on the go. Sure, you also need some participation and from the client himself, and it's wonderful when you have that, and where he's willing to contribute to your efforts that you're doing.
Okay, and did you say you had some pictures lined up?
Sorry?
Did you say you wanted to have some pictures lined up?
Yeah, someone asked to show the Wilson Audio picture again.
The bedroom.
The bedroom, yes. Yeah, it's the bedroom.
Sorry?
Yeah.
There's a bed. How's that? Whoa, you've got nothing in that room. You've got a 31 hertz standing wave.
31 hertz runs 5 times longer than any other bass frequency in that room.
And there's very little bass in that room in any case. So you can just... Yeah. No, that's horrible. I mean, that's disaster. That is a disaster. Now you've got to fill that in, you know, where that line is running across on that first, what is it, on a quarter of the page.
So ideally 31 and 31.5 hertz, or that would be more like 31 hertz. You've got to find a way to only pull 31 hertz out of the room.
So that's going to call for
there's no base absorber that can do one given frequency. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. So that question, how do you resolve that? I'll tell you what, your best chance here is possibly pulling in something like a trin of amethyst and dial into the DSP and kill
so
it.
You can either place yourself, a simple example would be put down a subwoofer, generate 31 hertz, and then at where your listening position is, and then move around the room with an SPL meter to where your speakers are, where 31 hertz is not a peak. That means you can move the speaker into that position, and you are artificially robbing the listening position of that frequency because it's no longer relevant where you are seated. That would be a short-term fix. The second option would be to look at loudspeakers that cannot extend that low end frequency so that you don't hear it in the room. The correct way to do it would be to have DSP that's powerful enough to address that frequency, but also the phase shift that exists because of that frequency being dominant in the room. And there is product that can do that.
The thing to remember about,
if I may, this is actually quite fascinating, but I think it's probably getting into probably a bit too much specifics for the purposes of this gathering. But let's just have a look at those Wilsons, and we can maybe wrap up after that.
This was, you'll see the markings on the floor. I mean, Henk also assisted us here greatly, you know, and kindly flew up. This was an evaluation that was done. There's the Agostino Momentums that you see, the 400s driving the Wilson Sashas there. Beautiful loudspeaker, great product, great company. Just want to see, we also got a couple of other interesting, just in closing, our latest addition to our brands in the country is Boulder. I don't know how familiar you are with the Boulder brand name. This is really a top high-end company out of the US, and we've had fantastic and wonderful experience over the last couple of months introducing these products into the country. Spectacular. The phono stage just sitting at the back of this power amplifier is a $55,000 US phono stage. Blew my mind on the little things that I cannot tell you. It was just phenomenal to experience. I recall at the time, I think around about 2012, when this phono stage, when its first incarnation was introduced into the market, it introduced a new category in stereophile, you know, A+ for phono stages. And subsequently, this has been revised and updated. Spectacular sounding devices and equipment.
Folks, we could go on all night, I can see, but sadly, we've somewhat overstayed our welcome here. I think from my side, that pretty well wraps up what I was interested in finding out. In summary, it's been a wide-ranging, possibly a bit on the business and marketing heavy side, a bit heavy, but that's as it should be, I think, because as audiophiles, you know, we're not just about the gadget sitting in the room or on the equipment support. It is also about the environment we live in. And it's important to know what pressures are out there and what affects what arrives in our lounges and the way it gets there. And so to Eugene and colleagues, thanks very much for an illuminating interview with yourselves, giving us some insight into the challenges of doing business, some insights into the really interesting things that are just around the corner and in fact available right now. And we look forward to seeing you go from strength to strength. And thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, and everyone who joined in tonight. We really appreciate this opportunity and value it. And yeah, we look forward. We might meet in future again. Maybe we'll narrow it to a specific topic and spend a bit of time on that. You know, we don't have to go so broad and jump around so many different platforms, so to speak, or subject matter. And if there's something specific the guys would like to discuss, we will gladly look at it and say if we can contribute positively to something like that.
I can tell you that judging by the reaction to one aspect of what you were talking about, there'll be some interest in dealing with room problems.
Room problem is a massive, massive issue, and there's some nice stuff. And I would think that if we come around on a month or 2, 3, that we would have some interesting product on hand that we could physically discuss a bit and talk about. From acoustics, then we'll make sure we can lay it out on the table and discuss these products.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Well, from me then, good night, and thanks very much to all of you who took part viewing, and thanks again to Eugene and company, and of course to Chris for twiddling the knobs.
All the best. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.